welcome to our weekly discussion, Moral Side of the News. I'm Shawn Kaelin with the WHAS Crusade for Children. Joining us today, always, a distinguished panel, Reverend Jason Crosby, Center College, Father Tony Smith, Archdiocese of Louisville, and Rabbi Stan Miles, Louisville Melton School. We begin this week with the controversy surrounding the firing of a high-ranking official in Mayor Greenberg's administration. His former Deputy Chief of Staff, Shawn Dorsey, was let go this week.
So when they say it wasn't approved, that's bogus.
It's the falling out between Louisville Mayor Craig Greenberg and his former Deputy Chief of Staff, Dorsey. Dorsey, fired last week, is calling for an ethics investigation into the mayor's office for discrimination. She spoke at Bishop Dennis Lyon's roundtable on Friday.
And we will take down a corrupt administration that is trying to oppress the voices of women.
Now Dorsey sharing more of her side of the story with me. What is your, right here, right now, biggest pieces of evidence that the mayor discriminated against you specifically?
One, it's not just the biggest piece of evidence. It's ongoing. I have documentation of back and forth with David Kaelin.
David Kaelin is Greenberg's chief of staff and Dorsey's former supervisor. In an email exchange we obtained between the two back in February, Dorsey voices concerns over workplace culture, writing, quote, "It seems that my reality, when shared with others who do not share my experiences, is often misinterpreted as pessimism." Kaelin later responds, in part saying, quote, "I would like you to consider whether you are perhaps making a serious error by interpreting mere disagreement as being dismissive, or worse, as a derogatory attack." Then the bombshell. He tells Dorsey, "You will have a full opportunity to explain why, even prior to your surgery, your lack of attendance was noticeable." Dorsey pushing back on that.
There are days my computer just does not work, and I still send emails. So that's their way of trying to get around and saying, "Oh, you didn't log in. Check my emails."
In a statement Tuesday, the mayor's office says, quote, "Ms. Dorsey was terminated for a pattern of misconduct and job performance issues that followed a long history of repeated, unexcused absences." Also at issue is a 3-week sabbatical Dorsey took late last year, a period in which her own email records show she was out of the office, but timesheets we obtained revealed she did record working hours through a significant portion of that span.
So it's been the top story several days this week. Even we tape on Thursday. There's continuing stories going on with this today. Very public accusations back and forth. The mayor came out yesterday on camera with more than just his statement, saying the same thing he said in his statement, very aggressive. Could this be a growing political problem for the Greenberg administration?
I think it definitely is. And the tragedy of this situation is there are issues that need to be addressed to facilitate Louisville working as a city, and this is not. This is an HR problem, and hopefully it will be solved, and the administration in Metro Hall can go to leading the city, because this is not leading. This is not governing the way that that the city of Louisville deserves to be governed.
I would agree with you. The hope that we could end this. I speak from my ignorance. I don't think a lot of people, except what is expressed in the media, know what the heck's going on. But in regards to, is there background, is there information, is there evidence on either side, whatever. I hear people speak about emails. Well, you can doctor emails as long as you want to. The fact that she was gone, time frame or whatever, I mean, that you should be able to verify that one shape or form.
With a sabbatical, I don't know about you guys, but I've always thought that if one takes a sabbatical, one's place of employment needs to sign off on the sabbatical. You don't just take a sabbatical.
Right.
It is part of your employment package that when you decide to take the sabbatical itself, you sign off on it, and your place of employment does as well.
It's the same with us in a sense. We need special permission to do a sabbatical, but now what a sabbatical is open to public discussion too.
And isn't a sabbatical like after 7 years in a position? But the administration has been around for what, maybe a little bit over a year and a half?
Well, it depends. Again, in our situation, it may be different than others, but after every 7 years, we clergy are allowed to petition for a sabbatical. And after 40-some years of priesthood, I received about 1 month of a sabbatical. So, but it depends.
Well, given the fact that I think that each of us are in agreement that there are a lot of question marks regarding this particular issue that we don't have full clarity on, that the public doesn't have full clarity on. It's difficult for me to be in a position to cast aspersions or point a finger in one direction or another at this point. And so consequently, given the limited knowledge before us, as I was thinking about this situation and how to approach it as we were entering this discussion today, I kept coming back to this is one of those occasions when maybe we need to let the cake bake. There's a lot out there that is unknown, and so before landing in one place or another, I think that getting some more information and clarity will be helpful. I will also say that it's a reminder to me, this dynamic of the complications that can arise in a workplace environment. And one thing I am hearing Ms. Dorsey say is that I believe one of her quotes since all of this has happened is, or in the midst of all this, was, when I share my experiences, I feel like I'm not being heard. And I wonder if supervisors or others in the mayor's office feel the same way as they're trying to communicate. Folks are not perhaps hearing each other. And that happens all the time in a work setting, in a family setting. Certainly it happens in churches, in communal life all the time. And so that was just another aspect of this that I do feel I was able to tease out from all the grayness and murkiness. Was, oh goodness, that it appears to me that there is communication challenges that are underneath all of this that perhaps could be a factor. And I certainly know from experience in the workplace and in other arenas of life that happens all the time, and it's not easy to navigate through that. Yeah.
So we should see this as an opportunity not to reflect upon what's being presented to us, but perhaps in our own sphere of existence and whatever, to look at ourselves to make sure that we are being communicative, communicating and being responsive to one another in their experiences.
From the clips that we just viewed, it's just, to me, it's a frustrating example of watching people talk at one another.
Yeah.
True.
Very true. Okay, let's turn now to the race for president and the examination of Governor Walz's military record as he runs for vice president, many accusing him of stolen valor.
What bothers me about Tim Walz is the stolen valor garbage.
Republican candidate for Vice President J.D. Vance taking aim at Governor Walz's military record and this video.
And we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
Walz never served in combat.
When Tim Walz was asked by his country to go to Iraq, you know what he did? He dropped out of the Army and allowed his unit to go without him.
It's come up before as Walz has run for office in Minnesota.
I'm retired Command Sergeant Major Tom Behrens from Brewster, Minnesota.
Tom Behrens accused Walz in 2018 and again in this 2022 news conference of bailing on his troops before they got sent to Iraq. He claims they knew as early as March 2005 their unit would be deployed, yet Walz chose to retire first.
He knew damn well what was going to be going on, and that's why in May he was gone.
Here was Walz's response.
We all do what we can. I'm proud I did 24 years. I have an honorable record. I served with literally thousands of people.
He said he retired after 24 years in the Guard to run for Congress.
And I simply moved on to try and serve something else.
KARE 11 asked the Minnesota National Guard for the timeline. They told us Walz retired in May 2005. Walz's unit, the 125 Field Artillery Battalion, received an alert order 2 months later, in July 2005, and their mobilization order came in August 2005.
He did his duty.
Others who served with Walz defend him. Joseph Eustace, a 32-year Guard member, told us he spoke with Walz before he retired and didn't feel he did anything wrong.
I wouldn't vote for him. But this isn't about voting for him. It's about being honest about his service, and he did his service as well as anyone did.
That was produced by our sister station, KARE, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And many now are also questioning his final rank. He's made several comments that he retired as Command Sergeant Major. It's listed as such on his Minnesota governor's website. However, his final rank was in fact Master Sergeant, as he never completed the training necessary to achieve that higher rank. So as we begin the discussion, your thoughts on this?
I don't know very much about the military, but looking at the timeline, it seemed like he retired from service before the actual call-up of his unit, 2 months before the call-up of his unit, and 3 months before the deployment. And was it close? Yeah, but it's not like it was known that there would be a deployment, and so there's a deployment in the offing. I'm out of here. And we're going to hear stuff like this, and we'll hear it from both sides of the aisle during this presidential campaign. A constant nitpicking about stuff, and it just gets really tiresome really soon on both sides.
Yeah. Well, having served in the military, I would say my comment would be 24 years in military service covers a multitude of sins. In the sense of and as he himself said, Mr. Walz said, he gave honor to Vance in regards to his service as well. Anyone who volunteers, and it usually still a volunteer service, to defend their country, and whether it's abroad, here, or home, whatever it is, I think we owe them respect. But if you want to play politics about this, who doesn't?
I don't.
I don't either. But look at, as we say, they're saying that he misrepresented himself, et cetera, but he did go, whereas the commander-in-chief, who's running to become commander-in-chief, what is his history in regards to military service? Bone spurs, et cetera. And some of those will be being questioned now. You can play politics with it, but I say let's go. Let's give honor to those who have not only given their lives, but also those who return in service of our country, and allow him to run for office. If the people do not accept what is being said about him, November will tell.
Yeah. Well, and I will say that the misrepresentation, whether intentional or not, of his ranking at the end, I would encourage anyone and everyone, circling back around to our previous conversation about clarity and communication. Any time that any of us are able to be precise with our language, and we're all prone to missteps, every single one of us. When he was in a setting in the clip where he mentioned that he carried a weapon in war, and it's been demonstrated that while he wasn't in that theater, he nonetheless knew how to handle military-grade weapons, and certainly had those in his hands at times.
And taught people how to do it.
And taught people how to do it. we're dealing with shades of gray with that comment. When he's identifying himself in one way on his website and it's slightly distinct from his actual ranking, again, I think that it's good for everyone to be as precise with our language as we can possibly be. And then secondly, I think it's important when there are some missteps in communication in the normal sphere of life. I know that this may not pertain in the political arena, but in a normal sphere of life, to show a little grace when people might make a mistake that is made with good faith. And that's kind of where I land as I read this situation, and unless I see that there are other exacerbating issues that arise with the military service, as Tony is saying, 24 years of service, retiring in May, they're called up later. From where I sit, I applaud that, and relative to others that are running for office, I think that's notable, achievable, commendable. But I do think in that position, and especially moving forward, being precise with that language will be very helpful.
Correct, yes.
In the mistake, I mean, it's not like Walz passed himself off as a 4-star general.
Right.
Nitpicking.
Right.
And we'll see much more of that before November.
Right.
Lots.
A lot more.
Lots.
Yeah. And thank you for your service.
I was during the Vietnam era, but my turn was in the Washington, D.C. area, military. So.
All right, let's move on to topic 3 now. A lawsuit against General Motors over claims it installed data collection software on more than 14 million vehicles and then sold that information to insurance companies.
This morning, General Motors in the hot seat. Texas suing the car maker, claiming GM violated the privacy of millions of Americans. The lawsuit claims the company misled customers into sharing data about their driving habits by enrolling them in technology-enabled safety programs and then selling that information collected by those programs to data brokers. That data on customers' driving habits allegedly ended up in the hands of insurance companies, prompting them to raise some customers' rates.
This is the beginning of an era where we will continue to be connected in every possible way. Cars might seem like the last bastion of this cocoon-like environment, but it's one more thing that's getting connected.
The lawsuit comes months after a New York Times investigation revealed GM and other automakers were selling customers' data, including the start and end times of trips and even instances of speeding or hard braking. The Texas Attorney General says millions of American drivers wanted to buy a car, not a comprehensive surveillance system. A General Motors spokesperson says the company has been in discussions with the Attorney General's office and says, quote, "We share the desire to protect consumers' privacy."
So panel, your thoughts on what GM's being accused of doing here?
My opening comment, in the era when our refrigerators are spying on us and our televisions are spying on us, et cetera, and insurance companies, by the way, are offering, if you put something like this in your car, your rates can go down a little bit. I think it's just trying to perpetuate a fallacy that's out there that there's such a thing called a right to privacy. You know, if you try to buy a car, they're going to check and see what your driving record is. You know, things of this nature. It's something that I don't know if it's just something that plays well with the voters in Texas or whatever, but to me it's happening not just with General Motors or whatever. I think most vehicles now. I drive a car, shall go nameless, but I mean it's tracking me. In fact, it even lets me know when I'm going out of line, and when all this stuff, you know, it pulls me back in line. It'll even brake for me without me even touching the brakes, type thing. The whole thing of privacy, I think we need to really understand that is, in a sense, bygone type. And where is it that we have a right, such as indicated by law or by Constitution? So,
I smell a class action lawsuit right here.
You think?
Right now, well, we do have a person with a law degree on our panel.
Yeah, it went to law school, just for the sake of clarification and clear communication.
Do you also smell a class action suit?
There are many legal issues that arise. This could be in a law school textbook. That's for certain. But, I think an underlying issue, though, beyond general willingness to concede right to privacy, is in this modern connected internet era, are there still ways that consumers, that drivers can have in place some checks on what should be, even though it may not exist, what maybe should be a reasonable degree of privacy? And there are, I think, some simple measures that might be able to be put in place. But it is troubling when, unbeknownst to me or you or any of us, our driving is being tracked, even though I presume that might be happening. But then, when I don't know who is doing that, and then that party then sells that information to an insurer, and then that insurer could then use that information to perhaps adjust my rates, unbeknownst to me. There are several layers of issues and complications that arise. Well, yes, I move through the world not thinking as if the default is I am doing so incognito, that every single move I am making is, yes, being tracked in some capacity or another. There can be, and I believe that there should be, some mechanisms and controls that can be put in place to ensure that we are still being kept safe, and that there are some zones of privacy that exist.
I'm concerned because I'm really guilty when I put in a new app or something like that, and before I can activate the app, this 5 or 10 page very small print thing scrolls down on my phone.
Yes.
And do I have to accept these terms?
Yes.
And I just, as a matter of course, I don't read the whole thing. I just go to the end and push the blue button and I'm on my way. And I'm wondering if, I've never had a GM car, so I've never dealt with the OnStar system. But I'm wondering if to activate the OnStar system when you get a car, do you have to go through and you have that endless legal thing that you have to sign off on in order to start the system, and people sign off on it, and maybe somewhere buried in those page after page of material, you are giving up your privacy right or giving GM the right to sell the data to a third party.
Possibly so.
Yes, and that is where contracts class that I took many moons ago doesn't come into effect, because enduring question is the validity of contracts, such as that, the ease with which you can pack so much into it without a consumer being aware. And there are ongoing challenges in courts across the country every day when it comes to the binding degree of those. This is one instance, oddly, when I think that the Attorney General Paxton in Texas might be onto something, and where I agree that at least taking some measures within the bounds of law that exists to protect privacy is beneficial, not only for those in Texas, but it's something that can benefit all of us, no matter where we may be.
I would say to you, that brings up another point, which I think could be applicable here, is the rights of the individual versus the rights of community.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so if they're saying, and I'm sure I'm not sure, I had no legal training, that the insurance company or the GM may say, by getting this data, we are making the roads safer for moms and dads with kids in their cars and all this other stuff. So it's the moral right of the individual for privacy, if you want to use that terminology, but also the right of the individuals who are driving next to you on the road for your safety and their safety as well. So I think, again, yes, there's a lot of as my attorney friend of mine used to say, that would make a great court case. But beyond that too, I think there's also an ethical issue here of what's the intent of having this? This is to make money, then I have a major issue with that. But if it's for the benefit of the community, I can see there's some light shining through there. So, yeah.
Very good. We have just about 3 minutes left. Let's move on to a topic that a lot of listeners are on the radio right now listening to us, and road rage. Hopefully you're not experiencing that, but driving in the U.S. is getting increasingly dangerous due to confrontational driving. The number of violent road rage incidents rose across the United States, has surged in the past decade. Between 2014 and 2023, increased more than 400%. Indiana ties for 7th as the worst state for having a high number of drivers who've experienced confrontational drivers. Kentucky's 36th.
Really?
Oh. So as folks are out there listening to the show on WHS Radio and the iHeart family, your message to drivers, especially those in Indiana.
Well, my comment would be just what we were talking about. This is a possibility of benefiting from that, looking at how one drives, et cetera. So.
We've all experienced it, even to a minute pursuit. I mean, not that we would do anything about it, but certainly I've been in situations where someone has done something to cut me off or something. I've been ticked off. I didn't do anything. Well, I might have said something in privacy that only my computer and
GM and your insurer heard.
That's right. Yeah, but it just, you just can't let something like that move you toward, God forbid, homicide.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't surprise me to hear about that data, those increases. I mean, I'm on the road almost every day, going 60, 70 miles in one direction, and then that same distance back from Louisville to Danville. And you can see it and feel it, and the data does not at all surprise me. And it's a sad reality, I think, in which we find ourselves, that for, again, circling back to our first topic, the inability to handle difficulty gracefully is a challenge I deal with, but I sense that we're really struggling with collectively. And I think it's connected to our second topic in that when you're in your car, you think you're isolated and you behave in ways that are unusual, not how you'd behave in other settings.
Why Indiana?
Have you been up 65 between here and Indianapolis?
A topic for
Never
another.
mind. We'll talk about that next week.
There you go.
Well, thanks so much to our panel this week. Again, we have Reverend Jason Crosby from Center College, Father Tony Smith from the Archdiocese of Louisville, and Rabbi Stan Miles from the Louisville Melton School. Thanks for watching and listening to Moral Side of the News this week. We'll have an all-new conversation next week, and you can check us out on YouTube. Be safe on the roads.